Good afternoon, and thank you, Murakoze Chani, for asking me today to present at this important conference. I'm so sorry that I cannot be with you in person. In February 1995, in a closed meeting of the UN Security Council, just months after the genocide against the Tutsi had been ended by the forces of the RPF, the ambassador for the United States had raised the issue of the scandalous continuing freedom of genocide fugitives, the prime suspects who had scattered worldwide, the remnants of the Hutu power movement still at large. It was proposed by the US that all UN member states should be called upon to arrest and detain those suspected of perpetrating the genocide of the Tutsi, using the enforcement provisions of the UN Charter. Recalling the 1948 Genocide Convention, and the Council is central to its application, the US wanted the resolution to be legally binding to provide UN member states with the authorization to detain suspects immediately. The ambassador representing France objected. Ambassador Jean-Bernard Mérimée told the Security Council he could not approve of any detention resolution invoking the enforcement provision of the Charter. A US ambassador, David Sheffer, later remarked, "One of our closest allies appeared determined to act as an accomplice in facilitating the génocidaire freedom." The US was aware that France had the most complete information of any Western government on events in Rwanda. France had access to witnesses, evidence, and even perpetrators. The US believed that the French were unwilling over the detention of genocide suspects because France had become a safe haven for Hutu power fugitives. Perhaps now it is an opportune moment in the wake of the visit of President Emmanuel Macron to look more closely at the role of French diplomacy in '94. Her strange behaviour in the secret meetings of the Council held to decide UN policy towards Rwanda. It is worth recalling the indifference at the United Nations in New York. As those terrible days unfolded in April '94, the more evidence of genocide emerged, the more reluctant politicians and their officials were to acknowledge genocide was happening. There is still yet more to discover about the role of the then Secretary General Boutros Ghali and his great friendship with President François Mitterrand. Boutros Ghali was widely seen as the French candidate for UN Secretary General, and when he was lobbying to become Secretary General, France had paid his tour of capitals to get the required votes. And consider how, at the end of April '94, Boutros Ghali, who had portrayed what was happening as civil war, had asked for forceful action to halt massacres, offering no options to the Council, this drawing a stunned silence from Ambassador. Boutros Ghali's later enthusiasm for Opération Turquoise had been notable. This was when, after a long absence from the Council, he appeared there before ambassadors and urged them to vote in favour. In those 3 months, April to July, Rwanda did not engage on the most basic and elemental human level of compassion. Any idea of protection for helpless victims was dismissed by the United States, the UK and France. Permanent members of the Security Council played politics, refused funding, and for hours argued about the definition of the word genocide, used debate to delay and avoid moral and political imperatives. The Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide is not a vague promise, it is a treaty obligation. If we fail to scrutinise the Security Council and each country's policy within it, we render the Council secret and unaccountable, and allow our governments to ignore treaty obligations with no sanction. France, the best informed country on the Council in '94, had not shared what it knew, and this was a major contributory factor in the overall failure. In 2014, to honour the 20th commemoration, many fine words were spoken in the UN Security Council about lessons learned, although no one has ever articulated exactly what those lessons are. In honour of the 20th commemoration, the Council passed a unanimous resolution to try to compel governments to outlaw the denial of the genocide of the Tutsi. Resolution 2150 of April the 16th reads as follows. The Council condemned without any reservation any denial of this genocide and urges Member States to develop educational programmes that will inculcate future generations with the lessons of the genocide in order to help prevent future genocides. It is a masterclass in hypocrisy. Today, a genocide denial campaign flourishes unchallenged. A concerted campaign to deny the genocide of the Tutsi using fake news and phony science. Once more, fine words in the Council, no action and general apathy. Genocide denial is hate speech. An integral part of genocide, denial ensures the crime continues. It mocks those who survived and causes the gravest offence. The pernicious influence of the racist ideology of Hutu power lives on in rumour, stereotype, lies, propaganda and fake news. And the génocidaires, wherever they are, in prison cells or living in numerous countries as fugitives, pose a threat, especially to those who might not be aware of the historical facts. I would like to end with a brief explanation of the crisis we now face regarding the increasing promotion of denial in the circumstances of the genocide of the Tutsi. In 1994, the Western news coverage of the genocide of the Tutsi had marked one of the most ignominious periods in journalism, with descriptions of tribal violence, random killing, and it seems no different today. There is no attempt at proper investigation of events, a disregard for established fact, a careless and complacent media, incapable, therefore, of recognising genocide denial and unable to confront it. In 2014, in the UK, the national broadcaster, the BBC, aired a documentary called Rwanda's Untold Story. It put forward what was called an alternative version of events. The BBC journalist suggested a drastic reduction in the death toll, suggested it was nearer 200,000 Tutsi people killed. The programme had promoted moral equivalence, a familiar genocide denial tactic, arguing that more Hutu had died than Tutsi. No wonder the programme was popular with the deniers, and in 2016 it was used in the appeal of a convicted genocidaire, Pascal Simbikangwa. His defence lawyers thought the BBC documentary would help explain to the jury an alternative view of events and how the official story of the 1994 genocide of the Tutsi, the one widely accepted, was no more than a construct of the current government in Kigali, a fraudulent attempt to beguile the West to get its hand on aid money. The BBC programme was a milestone. A group of 46 experts, scholars, scientists, researchers, journalists, historians and ambassadors complained to the BBC. The list included Lieutenant General Romeo Dallaire, Force Commander of UNAMIR, Senator Alan Destex, Ambassador Karol Kawanda, the Czech Republic, a member of the Council in '94, Canadian Ambassador Stephen Lewis, the French journalist Patrick de Saint-Exupéry, and the former president of the ICRC, Cornelio Samaruga, who every day during the genocide had received direct reports from the chief delegate in Kigali, Philippe Gaillard. Today, this group is simply dismissed. In her new highly acclaimed book about Rwanda, the British journalist Michaela Wrong writes that the people on this list have been fooled. This petition to complain to the BBC was no more than an indication of how thoroughly the RPF narrative has taken hold. The BBC had vigorously defended its programme, admitting that the drastic reduction of the genocide, of the genocide death toll was controversial. The figures part of a debate with a wide range of views, with many interpretations of data. The BBC has explained that the programme presented dissenting views, alternative perspectives, and controversial theories about the genocide of the Tutsi, claiming all the while that it had not misled viewers. In her book, Do Not Disturb, Michaela Wrong presents an alternative version of events that is hailed as the truth at last. Martin Fletcher, a former foreign editor of The Times, in a rave review of this book in The New Statesman, wrote that Wrong was no apologist for the genocide, but no apologist for the genocide, but, she argues, quotes, genocides do not take place in a vacuum. There is always a context and a build-up, and in this instance it was a history of Tutsi aggression against Hutu, and the recent incursion of Kagame's Tutsi-dominated militia, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, from Uganda into northern Rwanda. The Hutu feared for their own safety, and it was kill or be killed, a motivation most of us can grasp. Since 2014, letters have been written about the promotion of genocide denial to the BBC, The Guardian, The New York Times, Columbia Journalism Reports in New York, and The Washington Post. One letter went to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, whose offering for the 20th commemoration was a website article that expressed doubts on whether or not the genocide had been planned. In November 2014, I wrote to every MP, every Member of Parliament on the House of Commons all-party parliamentary group on the Great Lakes region and genocide prevention, to tell them that the broadcast of the BBC Rwanda's Untold Story was offensive. There was not one response. A concerted effort in 2014 may have spared the spread of denial today. The genocide denial we face demands a concerted international response. The denial of this genocide, and it is a worldwide phenomenon, needs to be confronted by all nations and challenged vigorously wherever it occurs. Murakoze Chani, thank you.